Okay, let's go ahead and begin. So thank you everyone for joining me. I always appreciate you taking time out of your day to participate in a platform webinar. I'm gonna go ahead and dive right into the presentation. I am a one-woman band today, so I'll try to pause throughout the presentation if anyone has questions, but we'll certainly leave time at the end for some Q&A. So let's start with my slides working. Who am I? I'm Jackie Wogan, so you've probably received many communications from me. It is my role at Platform to make sure that you all have the tools and resources you need to get the most out of Platform and just to support you as educators. You'll also find me in many of the programs, both coaching and demonstrating movements. I'm also Kona's mom, so if anyone has completed our Mastering Mobility program, you've likely seen a little French bulldog prancing around or likely napping. She resides with me. She's napping right now. But most importantly, I'm in a constant communication with our customers, and I've been extremely impressed with how many of you have adapted to this new way of teaching. So I've heard a lot of ideas in regards to styles of teaching while students are at home or in a hybrid model. So my goal today is to share some of those with you and open up a greater dialogue so we can all learn from one another. So here is today's agenda. So we've just completed a full semester of this new style of learning. Oops. New style of learning. We now have a chance to step back and say, how are others doing this? Is there anything I can be doing to make my life easier? Am I doing this right? So today we'll cover a review of remote programs and resources that are available to you through Platform. We'll talk about the logistics of a remote and hybrid setting. So what does a lesson look like through the computer versus in person? What does a weekly schedule look like? And how can you prepare for a semester-long curriculum? Lastly, I'll be sharing some tips and tricks just for making sure everyone is comfortable, engaged, and maybe even having a little fun in the remote learning environment. So here's our challenge. Most students at home have no fitness or weight equipment, whereas the students in school are following new rules and regulations. They need to be safe, they need to wear masks and spread out. And then to throw in another layer here, for some of us, half of our students are in person while the other half are simultaneously in the same class online. So how do we manage all of that? I'm going to start by laying out some program options. So when it comes to choosing a program or a combination of programs, what's most important factors are the experience level. So I have that going along my y-axis here, as well as what do you have access to as far as equipment and space. So I've broken this up into the three most common scenarios I've heard. Most common right now is no equipment. And with the winter months coming, especially, not a lot of space. Some of us have limited equipment. So maybe your students tell you, I have access to dumbbells and kettlebells. Maybe you have medicine balls available when you're in the gymnasium or in the weight room. We would categorize that as limited equipment. And then the last tier here is full weight room access. So racks and barbells. And then at the bottom here, I've listed our cognitive options, which of course can be done anywhere. So this is meant to demonstrate what your options are depending upon your particular situation. So some folks may decide to have all their students following the same program, regardless of whether they're in school or at home. Whereas some may choose to have their remote kids following a body weight program, and when their kids are in person, following more of a weight-based or maybe games-based activity, something that takes advantage of the equipment you have access to. So if this visual is helpful, I will be sharing these slides in a follow-up email. Yeah, I'm not going to dive into our programs today, as that could be its own entire webinar. But once you've selected which programs you want to use, how do you put it all together? So I'm going to provide some examples of how you might map out a curriculum using Platform programs. So this first example I have here is a condensed schedule. So this approach has been really well received. With this schedule, you're covering 3 lessons per week and inserting some supplemental mobility. So if you only meet with your students 3 times per week, let's say, we would suggest prioritizing the lessons in this example. Here's another example of an expanded schedule. So perhaps you don't want to pack so many lessons into each week, or perhaps you don't meet with your students frequently enough to do so, you can add in some more supplemental options like I've done here, such as nutrition and mobility, and I've even made time for games and activities in this example. In this next example, I don't mean to completely break your brain, but block scheduling is prevalent. And so if you operate within a block schedule, your mapped out curriculum may look like this. So here I've got my students doing a lesson from Fit 101 every other time we meet, and then I've inserted a more supplemental option, a mobility session in between each lesson. I do want to point out another consideration for remote folks. So when crafting your schedules, if you are incorporating both synchronous and asynchronous learning into your schedule, so synchronous meaning you have your students in front of you, likely in a virtual classroom setting like this, whereas asynchronous refers to the days when your students are completing workouts on their own. You'll want to map that out as well. So an example of a schedule I've heard is I see my students 3 times per week in a virtual setting, but they're actually expected to complete or participate in something 5 days a week for 45 minutes. So in this instance, your schedule may look like this. I've clearly labeled which sections I'm going to do with them in person. So here I've used in a live virtual setting. So here I've used the fitness program, Fitness Anywhere program as an example. So for my live synchronous sessions, I'm going to focus on using the Fitness Anywhere workouts. I want to actually see my students completing these workouts. Whereas for the asynchronous days, I've assigned more cognitive and easy to follow program options such as nutrition and mobility. So again, these are just meant to serve as examples, not necessarily anything you have to follow. What I hope you take away from this is that there are many different ways to map out a remote or hybrid plan. And what's important is that you have found the right one for your situation. If these visuals are helpful, I have the full maps here. So if you're curious, if you liked one of these schedules and wanted to know like how many weeks you would get out of that, I will share those in a follow-up email as well. So you have them for inspiration when crafting your own schedules and curriculums. All right, so now let's move into the logistics of remote and hybrid learning. So what does an actual lesson look like through the computer versus in person? So I'm going to show you a few different styles, and we're going to use a platform lesson as an example. So in example 1, the instructor is sharing their screen with a live virtual classroom, sort of like I am right now, and they are guiding the students through the first portion of the lesson in an instructor-led format with the students' video on. So the students have their video on through the guided warm-up, as well as the movement instruction and review. The instructor may also choose to review the finisher while the students are live with them with their videos on. But then when it comes time to actually completing the finisher, the videos are off. So this is a really popular style of teaching the lessons because it allows you, the teacher, to provide instruction and make sure your kids know what they're doing before sending them off, while still giving the kids autonomy to complete the higher intensity portion of the workout where and how they feel most comfortable. All right. In example 2, the students appear with their videos on for the start of class. The instructor briefs the workout. Perhaps you even watch the intro video together. Students then would complete the entirety of the lesson on their own with their video off. And of course, they have access to it through their platform account. But then they're expected to return at the end of class for a debrief. So this style gives students more autonomy during the physical portion of the workout, yet gives the instructor a chance to check in, take attendance, as well as debrief the workout as sort of an exit pass. I had one teacher using this format who told me his students were logging in for the debrief at the end with sweat beads dripping off their face, hair was a mess, and he said, "This is a PE teacher's dream." So that is another way to kind of hold your live sessions. Example 3, another option is to just combine synchronous and asynchronous lessons in which the Synchronous lessons are live with the video on for the entire duration in an instructor-led format. And then the asynchronous lessons are to be completed on the student's own time. So this method provides different learning styles for your students. So if you have students that tend to do well in the virtual setting, they love participating, they'll have a chance to do so. Whereas if you have students that are a little less comfortable in this setting, they'll have a chance to excel in their workouts in the comfort of their own home. We have a snoring Kona in the background, very loud. All right. So we talked through some remote logistics. Now let's consider some hybrid logistics. So the term hybrid captures a wide range of learning models in which a class is divided and one portion learns in person while the other portion learns remotely. And you can teach to these cohorts simultaneously or independently. So we're going to take a look at a few examples. The first example is based around one lesson plan. So in order to teach one lesson plan in 2 locations, you'll want to start by assessing your space. So if it's an option, you can move equipment from your weight room to your gymnasium to allow for more distancing between your students that you have with you in person. And then rather than an instructor-led format here, students would access their assigned workouts via their device, and the instructor acts as more of a float available for questions and instruction. As for the remote students in the same class at the same time, they're logging in and are present for that same class. These students would also access their workouts through their device, and they can unmute themselves at any time to ask questions to the instructor. So with this model, it is ideal for the instructor to have a device that's portable, so you can carry it around while you're in the in-person class. With this person, all students are receiving their instruction through the platform workouts, but the teacher is available to all students, whether in person or remote. So I really like that style. I've heard some people have success with that one. The alternative here is to prepare different lesson plans for each cohort. So the in-person students may be focusing on a game-based curriculum or perhaps a weight-based curriculum, something that takes advantage of the space and equipment that you have access to when you're in person. Whereas the remote students are operating more asynchronously. They are not joining a live classroom, but they are accessing their assigned platform workouts through their devices. They can log these workouts in order to get credit. All right, now I'm gonna move into some tips and tricks that I've gathered through my conversations. Hopefully these give you some help and maybe inspire you to do the same. So firstly, support. So I know that you guys are likely fielding a lot of questions from your students remotely, particularly on how to use the platform program. And this can probably be challenging to respond to these questions remotely. So one tip that's been really helpful is if you haven't already, create yourself a student account. It really helps you see platform from the student perspective. And another trick I have here is if you use the incognito browser, so I know Google Chrome has one, other browsers may as well, that allows you to log into your staff account and your student account through platform at the same time. So you can easily toggle back and forth. So you can manage your class through your staff account. And then if you get a question or you're fielding questions on what should this look like, how do I do this from your students, pop into your student account and show them what it should look like or whatever it is they're looking for. So that's one way to support your students. For comfort level, if you find that a majority of your students aren't comfortable sharing their screen and participating in front of a large audience, teachers have had success using breakout rooms, which I know are available in Zoom as well as Google Classroom and other LMS platforms. This allows you to break students into smaller groups, and that way when they're participating or speaking up, it's in front of smaller groups of 4 or 5 rather than a 50-person class, for example. Another tip I've heard, and I thought it was silly at first, but I know some teachers are using it out there. If you're able to require that your students have to share their video, but they're really putting up a fight, you can have them use Scotch tape. So you can cover the screen with the clear Scotch tape. It literally blurs it out. So that way you can see the student in front of you they're moving, you know they're there, but maybe their peers cannot see the beads of sweat dripping down their face. So just kind of a funny tip, but I have heard some folks having success with that one. The next one I love, so video feedback. So while Platform does not actually film your students completing their workouts, there are ways to incorporate video into your class in other ways. So I connected with a teacher who was struggling to give her kids feedback remotely. She could see that they needed some technique work, but was having a hard time communicating that feedback to a large group of students remotely. So she actually has her students film themselves, for example, completing the core movements found in Fit 101. So a squat and a lunge, for example, not for the purpose of proving that they did it, but so that they can compare their video to our demo videos and maybe identify the points of performance that they may not be hitting. I thought that was a really great idea. It's not invasive. You're not asking your students to send videos. You're simply asking them to record themselves for their own benefit and as a way to critique themselves. It makes it pretty obvious or a little more clear. You know, it's hard, lacking body awareness, to understand where you may be hitting and not hitting points of performance. So I love that little tidbit there. Next is make it fun using what you have. And we really mean that. So you can look at a program where it may be better with equipment and get discouraged, or you can make it fun to try and do. So for example, we have a lot of teachers out there using our Fit 102 program. So that's the ideal progression to come after our Fit 101 program. The Fit 102 program is filmed with a medicine ball. So we're trying to introduce the concept of adding external load, but without actual heavy load yet. This can be replaced with anything, a broomstick, a PVC pipe, a hockey stick. So incorporating household objects can be kind of silly, but that's what makes it fun. I had one teacher tell me, you know, a lot of my students told me that they learned for the first time where their parents keep their broomstick. So make that funny, give them credit if they come up with the most interesting piece of household objects that they can use in place of a medicine ball. Next is the air horn and sandstorm. So Doug Curtin, he's a member of our team. He coaches a local swim team and he hosts remote workouts with them through a Zoom style session like this. He went out and purchased an air horn. And lets the kids know if you PR during this fitness challenge, he knows what they got last time. He's ready to see them PR. I'm going to give you the air horn. So every kid is motivated by that. Everyone wants to make the air horn go off. He also gives them, you know, times and scores to beat and says, if you beat this one, I'm playing Sandstorm. So that's the Fun Techno song. Every kid wants to be the one to make Sandstorm go off. So just some funny ideas that you can incorporate into your virtual sessions to make it a little fun. Lastly, leaderboards are available through Platform. And just like to emphasize that leaderboards are not just for, you know, squat maxes and heavy lifting. You can create leaderboards for finisher style workouts and for those fitness challenges found in the Fitness Anywhere program. That's a really great way to keep your kids engaged. They can be a daily leaderboard. It doesn't have to be, you know, only 3 leaderboards that they can be a part of. It's the more leaderboards, the merrier. It lets kids know where they shine and where they need improvement. Lastly, and I love this one, flip the classroom. So after you've covered a lesson as a class, flip the classroom and have your students, or perhaps smaller groups of students, prepare a lesson or maybe just a certain movement and teach it back to the class. That can be a really fun way to create engagement. It can also be tacked on to a participation grade, perhaps. I have a lot of teachers right now letting me know that they are losing their voice. They've been yelling into a computer screen for a full semester. This is also a really nice way to flip it back on the kids. And they can learn a movement thoroughly and reteach it back to the class, and maybe it gives you a break. Those are just some tips I've gathered and wanted to share. So up until this point, we've reviewed several available programs and ways to implement them, but what about when you need an ad hoc workout? So I'm going to move into the actual Platform website for this portion and show you all of the resources that can be found in the resources tab. So this is what you see here, a giant library of all of Platform's exercises, demonstration videos, and program content. So the resource tab is really useful if you're looking for more of a plug and play approach. So at the beginning of the presentation, I mapped out several schedules, and if you can stick to those schedules, it's great, but we all know holidays come up, we get behind, sometimes we have short days, we need to fill the time with something. That's where the resources tab can come in handy. And the nice thing about resources is your kids have this tab too. So you can navigate them to explore this tab as well. So a couple things you'll find in here. You can use the categories to search for certain things. One thing being our finisher workouts all live in here. So if you're looking for, we call them pillars, the named ones. So if you're looking for a quick hitter workout without the whole lesson, such as Couch Surfer, those can all be found here. You can browse our pillar workouts and encourage your kids or point your kids in the direction of the resource tab and tell them to do this workout. This is Lindsay. She's gonna coach us through this entire workout session. If they wanna log their score, they can. The Fitness Anywhere finishers all live in here too if you just search them by name. So that's how you know you can get ones that can be done in the living room. Also living in here are our mobility sessions. So if I were to click on mobility, let's say I was just looking for 20 minutes of guided stretching, but I didn't necessarily want to assign the entire program. I can come here and pull up a certain mobility section. And there we have Kona working overtime. Next, we're releasing a yoga program tomorrow, and those yoga sessions will live in here. So if you just want to get a quick yoga session in, this is where you can come to do so. They will all live here as individual sessions, as well as on the programs page as a full program. Movement review. So if you do use that flip the classroom style of teaching in your classes, this is where your kids can come to review movement instruction. So if you assign each kid a core movement, for example, I'm assigned the air squat. I'm going to come here, view all the instruction I have available at my disposal on the air squat, and then teach it back to the class. Another great category we have in here is the at-home category. So everything that we have filmed to date or put out there to date as far as at-home training can live here. So if you encounter a workout that asks your kids to do, 2 minutes of cardio, you'll see that a lot in some of our at-home programs. If they can't run outside, that's okay. This video covers all your different cardio options. So there's a lot of great stuff in here. As you can see, there's several other categories I didn't get to. My main point here is your students have access to it as well. Platform can be more than just assigning programs. It can be just a wealth of fitness instruction and education that can be accessed anywhere by the staff and the students that have access. So I'll move back into our slides. I think this is my last slide here. Just emphasizing what I just said. With Platform, both your in-person and remote students have access to the same thing. So instructional videos, instructional notes, scaling, and modification resources for at home. It's all right here. Let's see. All right, and that is my last slide. So hopefully you learned something today. I know I certainly have learned a lot from all of you. I'm gonna pause and hang out here for a bit. If anyone has questions, feel free to use the Q&A feature in the Zoom. As a reminder, I will be sending the recorded version of this webinar, as well as my slides and any materials you saw today, as well as a certificate of attendance. All right, so let's see. I think I have a question. Oh, not a question, just a thank you. All right, I will hang out for a few minutes or so. I'd love to hear your questions. I'd also love to hear how you're doing things. If I missed a fun tip that you've had success with, please share it here and I'll broadcast it. That's the only way we can all learn to get better. All right, so I have a question on, let's see. logistical scheduling. If you want to clarify what it is you're wanting to know about that, I am happy to talk more about it. I tried to format this presentation, starting bigger and then narrowing down how you'll actually treat each lesson. So I started with the example schedules. That's what you'll want to map out first. What I didn't get to show is really like how many weeks you would get, like actually mapping out a full semester. So that of course depends on how many weeks are you working with. We are always available to have those conversations. I've got a 12-week or 18-week semester, whatever you're working with. I'm looking to get this and this accomplished. I meet this many times per week, and we'll kind of help you put that puzzle together. My slides were meant to provide examples, but that's the way I would approach it. I really like this slide. I think it's really hard to visualize, what am I going to be covering every day? And then am I covering it live with my students, or are they responsible for doing it on their own? So hopefully this uncovered some ideas for you all to maybe take into account. You can definitely do a combo of both. I like to think that you want to focus on the lesson style programs that are better instructor-led format when you have the live synchronous sessions, and then the supplemental program options are really great for the asynchronous days. So maybe you want your kids doing something 5 days a week, but you don't have access to them 5 days a week. That's where Platform comes in. And hopefully through program assignments, through Platform, and through your ability to track them through Platform, that can help you out there. Okay, so I have a question about the scheduling versus the group access. So that is a totally fair question. So when I mapped out these schedules, this is just me mapping it out on a whiteboard or a piece of paper. I can't actually create one schedule in Platform that looks like this. We've been recommending using the group access method of program assignment in Platform, which is where you basically give students access to the entire program or multiple programs that you want them to see. So if you do create a schedule that looks like this, you will want to schedule or send that to your kids outside of Platform. Platform does have a scheduling tool, but you can only schedule one program at a time. So for example, if I were to actually want to make this schedule I have up on my screen come to fruition in Platform, I would just assign these 3 programs you see here: Fitness Anywhere, Nutrition, and Mobility, and then tell the kids which days they're doing what. I might send them a visual like this. Otherwise, if you did schedule in Platform, it does appear as 3 different schedules. So totally fair question. I can see how that would be a little confusing. All right, so someone asked, can you create your own workouts for your students using the resources function? Couple answers to that question. You can add your own exercises. So if you're really looking for Platform to become that one fitness platform that your students are accessing to get their workouts done, you can add exercises here. So if you see a video on YouTube that you really liked, wanted to share it with your kids, create it here, create a name for it. You can embed a YouTube URL here and give it a description. So I've seen teachers do that. Once it lives here, once you've added it here, it lives in the library, and you can encourage your students to access it that way. To further answer that question, I will say it is possible to customize workouts in Platform. So aside from just adding one-off exercises here, you can create a custom program. That is an option. Probably don't have time to go over that today, but if you're interested in exploring that, if you click on that help tab there, we have a section dedicated to the workout builder and how to use it. So if I search workout builder here, building a custom program and Platform, we have tutorials for that. So another person asked, what's the best way to run 2 programs simultaneously? I think I touched on that a moment ago, but my suggestion would be to just assign the 2 programs via group access. The schedule piece, like the examples I had up, you will want to communicate that to your students outside of Platform. So to do that, I'm managing my program and I'm assigning it to my desired groups. and choosing update. I would do that for as many programs as I want them to have access to through the manage button. Right. See less work done. So someone asked about logging workouts as a student. So always helpful. I'll just clarify how that works. Let me pull up a student account here. So through platform, what we are logging when your students log a workout, we are logging the time it took them to complete that workout from the moment they click start workout to finish workout. And we are tracking how many exercises they completed, which correspond with the done button associated with each exercise. So that's what's being logged. In addition, if there's a finisher or score that needs to be recorded, that gets captured as well. So this is just prototype of the student app. I'll pull it up here. When I'm logging a workout, I'm going to click this start workout button. That starts the timer. Each exercise then has a done button associated with it. That's what you see when you see like the 3 out of 7 or the 7 out of 7 exercises completed. That refers to each of those done buttons. So you'll want to educate your students in order to get full credit for your workout. Make sure you click start and stop when you start and finish, and click all the done buttons and log any scores that are being asked of you. That is how to get full credit for logging a workout. Okay, so I do have a really good suggestion here. So Anthony shared they're doing multiple modalities within the class. So for example, they use breakout rooms for different workouts. So one breakout room does Fit 101, one does mobility, and one does nutrition. That way students can choose which room they'd like to be in. Not every student feels comfortable working out. So mobility or nutrition might be something that works better for them. I love that suggestion. That's a common theme I've heard from a lot of educators, is kind of like, let's create options for our students. It's not one size fits all. We know that. And that's a really great way to do that, is leaning on those breakout rooms and giving the students options. I love that. Thank you, Anthony. Let's see what else we've got. All right, so Thomas asked a question about they're returning in January with a hybrid schedule, half in person, half at home at the same time. They want to do all the workouts live. So I would recommend the first one lesson plan option that I covered, which is where the instructor is acting more of a float rather than more of an instructor-led session. I think you absolutely can go for attempting to lead an instructor-led session. I think it's just really challenging to present video content to both people that are on the other end of a computer and people that are in person with you. So I think there has to be some push and pull there. That's why I presented it this way. Have had conversations with a lot of teachers having success with this. This is really where you're leaning on platform for the instruction pretty heavily, which is great. So keep in mind, you've assigned a program to your students. They all have access to the same thing, whether they're in school or remote. So in this example, you're kind of treating both cohorts the same. You have the remote students logged in front of you. You're carrying around a device, so if they have questions, they can chime in, unmute themselves, and say, "Hey, I'm working on this. How do I do this?" or whatever question they may have. And the in-school students, same idea. They're accessing their workout via their device. So we are the instructor in this scenario platform, whereas you are the float, available for questions. You can critique, provide instructions. We're hoping to free you up to do that part. Actually teach, actually coach. We are just kind of running them through the lesson of the day. Hopefully that answered your question. I think I've gotten to all the questions. If I missed any, let me know. Did have one more question on students and logging. I know this is huge right now. You want to be able to give your students credit and assess who's doing what. Might be a good opportunity to mention, we are releasing a new dashboard activity tab. The goal is to release it around the 18th, so before the holidays. So you can be certain that you'll return for second semester with this new feature. Our goal here is to just give you enhanced insights as to what your students are doing in platform. So right now you can see, you can pull up your class and you can see who logged a workout on a certain day and what they logged. So timestamp and exercises completed. We know that there are a lot of folks leaning on platform for their grading right now. So our goal with this release is to help you there. So you will see a new tab here. This doesn't exist yet. There'll be a little new flag on it, so it'll be obvious that it's a new feature. But there's a lot of data that's going to live in here. We might be overwhelmed at first with what we have access to, but a lot of great stuff will be available here, as far as, you know, average duration of the sessions that were logged that day, what time of day they were logged. And I think one of the most valuable features here will be this weekly view. So it's very similar to the view through the activity feed in your app that you may be using, but it'll be a weekly view. So you'll be able to pull up a certain date range, a certain week date range, a certain group, and see, you know, Sunday, Monday through Friday, Saturday, all your students in that group, who logged what, when, and their timestamp all on one screen, which will be really nice. All right, like I said, happy to hang out for a couple more minutes or so. If you have more questions or examples of ways you're doing things that you'd like me to share, feel free to send them my way. If you'd prefer to follow up in an email and share them with me, please do so. More than ever right now, we're just trying to leverage our network here. We have a lot of amazing coaches and teachers in our community. We want to hear from you. We want to hear how you're doing things. We all need help. But it has been really great to kind of bounce ideas off one another and share those amongst the greater community. So thanks for joining me today. I hope, if anything, that's what you got out of it.